So you kind of have to go back to that, like that mentality that you have as a younger real estate agent and say, I can do this. Like you feel like you're a little bit more brave when you're young. You're like, yeah, I'll try it.
That was actually my script when I first got licensed.
Oh,
I was
really?
like, listen, I don't have a team. I don't have kids. I don't have a partner.
Right.
I'll sit your house open every single day.
Yeah.
Monday through Friday. When you get home from
Yeah.
work, I'll be here holding it open. Jessica, thank you so much for joining me today. This podcast is about showing folks how you go from 0 to 1. Because right now they see a finished product, you're all over the internet, you're all over the country, you're inspiring people, you're crushing it as an agent, you're crushing it as a leader. I've had the pleasure of sitting in the front row watching you tell your story. So why don't you share with the people watching who may not know you, you've just passed your test and you've sold 0 homes. Tell us from the beginning.
Yeah. Thank you, Leo, for having me. And it's awesome to be in your leadership, somebody that sits in the front row and stays through and listens to the agents and understands like where we've come from, just like you're an agent. For me, it was literally got a job on Craigslist. It was $12 an hour. We were selling, it was during the auction time, 2010. There were lots of sales going on at the auction steps, so we were driving around in the field looking at houses. We were running title, talking to real estate agents that had lost them to, in the short sale process, putting bids on them at the auction steps, and I got a job sitting and underwriting the value of properties. And I had a little bit of background in real estate property management, and love numbers and love people. Wasn't a whole lot of people involved, but a lot of numbers. So got really good at understanding and underwriting and evaluating property in Southern California. We did thousands and thousands of sales, hundreds of auction.com a month for our investors. And fast forward 2013, that all dried up. Got my license, went home from the office, sat at my desk with a pen and a laptop that I borrowed and my phone, and picked up the phone and started calling those investors. And I think, the difference where I see a lot of real estate agents go in the beginning of their career is they want to call all the people they don't know first and generate leads, or they want to pay for cold leads. And the best place to start for me that got me to where I am today was picking up and building relationships. So one of the things that really helped was my background actually working in the restaurant business and doing events. So I thought, how do you add value to people? Like, how do you show them that you're coming from contribution in a way that you're leading with value? So what can I do for you guys when you don't need me? And that generated a lot of relationships cultivated a lot of relationships with investors. And then from there, finally it was, hey, can you sell this property for me? And then year to date, I'm over 100 listings listed and sold year to date.
Amazing.
Yeah,
Amazing.
It works.
And so I love the tactical, right? So you sat down and you picked up the phone. You had the benefit of having a list, which you rightfully earned by doing something for 2 or 3 years. But what was, when you said, hey, Mr. Investor, when they picked up, what did you say?
Yeah, hey, how's it going? I know the opportunities for acquisitions has dried up. Is there anything going on that you guys are looking to do that I could support you in? I've got people in the field, I'm happy to drive anywhere. I already built a really good reputation with them. Would you like me to check on some of your projects? How can I support you? And actually the first call was, hey, can you list this property for $500? 10 years later, the 2 people that said no before me don't have their business. They still try to get the business from the investors. But, a $500 listing at the time, my friends would say, well, that doesn't really seem worth it. But I looked at the opportunity because I believed in the value of the company. It was aligned with mine. And I thought it would be a good relationship to continue to build.
And then from there, where did you go? You got that first listing.
Yeah, so from there, I tried to identify where the opportunities were and kind of according to what the patterns were, what the investors were focused on, so where I could create and add more value. So for example, they had a lot of funky, junky properties, so we looked at, well, how can we maybe come in and provide solutions for fixing them up or introducing them to additional contractors? Like, who do we know that we can connect them to? So actually connecting people with other people, I feel like they never forget that.
Absolutely.
Right.
And my career but was mostly focused around REO and investor property. So your story is near and dear to my heart.
Right.
On
so
the journey.
Every year just continue to progress, and fast forward, we had a small brokerage, a business partner of mine and I here in the backyard here in Irvine. And a lot of great agents that we were really building up and training them and teaching them the ropes, and then they would get wings and they would fly away.
That's the process.
That was the process. Just up late at night thinking about compliance and accounting and just all of the things that I didn't want to do.
And forms.
Yeah, forms, yeah. Laws, hotlines. So the best part was we looked at the EXP thing pretty quick in 2020, and it was actually right before they announced COVID. So it was April 1st is my start date, but I came over, started transitioning the brokerage mid-March. And during that time, we thought, we had one foot in the door, and we thought, is this crazy or brilliant? And I thought, well, let's figure it out. And
turned out to be brilliant.
Turned out to be really brilliant. It solved all the problems that kept me up at night.
In one day.
Yeah, and it gave me a solution to continue to build and help people build, and not just learn how to be real estate agents, but how to generate revenue, right? A lot of real estate agents, they know how to, they want to create another job for themselves, but to actually generate revenue, and then they stay. So it benefits me to continue and be focused on their growth. I'm incentivized to do that. And coming to EXP, the reason why I joined was for the numbers. That was it, like the opportunity of the tech, access to people I thought about a little bit, but not so much. It was mostly like, it just made business sense. Fast forward, I had never been to a real estate event in my life. I'd been to a NAREP event that I spoke at because they thought I was Latina, which was a blessing. I ended up speaking. I couldn't be nominated top 250 because but I married into the family. So went to a Cabo event and met a real estate agent that was part of what she called One EXP. And I thought, oh, that's interesting. So what do you guys do? And she said, well, we put together a lot of programming and education for our agents so that we know how to serve more segments, more human beings in the real estate industry, and also educate our agents and help them feel like they are building some type of community for them to thrive and have friends and a network to grow their business. And I thought, well, that's interesting. Followed up with her on an email. And that's really how I've built my amazing community and environment that I have now at EXP, has been through following up after a conference rather than waiting to see them next year for a big hug, like following up and saying, how can we collaborate? How can I support your business? What are you looking to do? Where are the synergies? And it's been amazing.
And if for someone who's not connected, whether they're with our company or another company, how do you encourage them to find their tribe? I know I've heard you say that on stage.
Yeah, find your tribe. I think you have to plug in, I think is number one. A lot of people they'll leave the company or any company that you're at and say there just really wasn't culture. You hear that a lot, right? There's no culture. But I think we have to be accountable for the environment that we create for ourselves. Like, who are we spending time with? Who are we listening to? From a leadership perspective, with all the NAR stuff as an example, who are you listening to? I tell people, do you have who are the 5 people? Can you name them right now? Who you're listening to, watching, reading? Who are they? So at EXP, that was it for me. Is who's really created a business and a community that I can visually see, not by what they say, but by their actions. Who are those people? And then reaching out to them. And that's what's been great about workplace and the other ways that we connect is I've cultivated that organically just by literally reaching out to people. And now it's the opposite. So I was speaking at one of our Kickstart programs last week. And I said, I do this often, how many of you will actually reach out to me and say hi or follow up with a question or have me be your accountability partner and show me that video that you made?
Do you have the stats?
And I have the stats, yeah. I had 30 agents reach out of almost 300.
Okay.
So it's 10%.
So I love that number because I have a crazy story for
Okay,
you.
so it aligns?
Oh yeah.
That's 10%.
So during REO, I was one of the biggest REO agents in the country. And if you remember, VRM was one of the largest outsourcers. They had the Freddie Mac contract, they had the VA contract, and I ended up being their national trainer. And so I was actually flown out to every REO Max, 5-star event, all of the big REO events. And I actually had a badge that said I was an asset manager because I was a presenter, I was a speaker. And
you had a line.
Yes, but this is the crazy part. So it was funny because I was described as I was like a sponsored athlete. They paid for everything, and I spoke for a 2-day seminar. And this is what blew my mind. agents would spend $500, $499, whatever it was, to be in my class. It was a 2-day certification, and there was a big disclaimer at the class that said, this does not guarantee you listings. It just makes you certified that you actually understand, because REO is a different language, right? For the folks that don't know what that is, it's real estate owned. It's the bank ledger for foreclosures, which you know very well,
Yeah.
but a lot of folks don't know what that actually stands for. And at the end of the class, I had a standard email, because I'm very systems oriented, that said, thank you for taking my class. As I travel the country, and I'm known as the guy who does this right,
Right.
Similar theme to today.
Yeah.
I run into banks who need agents all over the country, and they say, send me someone who's actually taking your class. Mm-hmm. So please respond to this email with what markets you serve, like just not the state you're licensed in, what markets you serve.
The water's right here.
Right, like 5 questions, like how long you've been in the business, all the questions an asset management company would ask me before I'd refer Jessica. And I think that's the most like people spent minimum $2 or $3 grand between airfare, hotel, to be in this room for that email, right? Because even though we said this does not guarantee you listings, people are taking the class because they wanted REO listings. And of that cohort, what do you think people responded to my email?
Yeah, 10%.
It was like 18%.
18%.
And it would blow my mind because these people.
Like, why'd you guys come?
You spent 2 days
Wow.
and thousands of dollars of your hard-earned after-tax dollars for this KPI, for this. Like, you were hoping I was actually going to do that. It was not part of the curriculum. That I did personally.
Yeah.
And by the way, I had a very good database.
Yeah.
but it's very similar to your results.
Yeah, and I truly believe that we're only ever one conversation away from changing our life.
Oh, yeah.
Right, and so that I feel like if you can really identify who those people are, reach out to them, and don't feel like most people will say they haven't mentored someone simply because no one has ever asked them.
So I have to ask, what is an example of one conversation you had that changed the course of your life? Because I have many of those in my life.
Yeah.
And whenever I tell people, like, I cold called so-and-so, or I reached out to so-and-so, they're like, what? But who have you got the guts to reach out to that affected your life?
Yeah, wow, there's so many. I would say my wife is probably number one, but the most recent one I would say that changed my life was a mentor of mine, James Rembert. And I was really struggling, wanting to create a coaching business and like thinking, and then it was like the real estate market was changing, and I thought, oh wow, this isn't really suit. And he said, Jess, what is it that you want to do? I said, well, I really want to do my podcast. I think I want to do the podcast. He says, what do you mean? You think you want to do it? Do you want to do the podcast? Yes, I want to do it. And he says, you need to, with conviction, start saying what it is that you want. So get out and do it. And it's really just, moving at the speed of implementation of the things that we want to do, rather than pushing off the things that are really important to us because we're reprioritizing the things that were allowing us to take up space. And I think like what you said with those 18% of agents, the difference between the ones that reached out and the ones that did is the resistance that they have to do it. And if we want to thrive in this business, we cannot be amateurs, we are professionals. So you cannot run around and do everything based on how you feel every day.
100%.
you have to like, I didn't, you don't always feel like, you may not have felt like doing a bunch of podcasts today or whatever it was, but.
I sure as hell didn't feel like talking about forms for 2 weeks.
None of us feel like changing our forms. But when you have that mindset that's sort of like, yes, this aligns with what I'm doing. And so that's helped because I think that and I know you've seen this a lot, an agent comes in and then as soon as they become successful, their lifestyle adjusts to how successful they are. And then they say, okay, now I need to keep control of it and I can't leverage anything because I could mess it up and lose it all. Mm-hmm. But so you kind of have to go back to that, like that mentality that you have as a younger real estate agent and say, I can do this. Like you feel like you're a little bit more brave when you're young. You're like, yeah, I'll try it. I don't have anything to lose, right?
That was actually my script when I first got licensed.
Oh, really?
Like, listen, I don't have a team. I don't have kids. I don't have a partner.
Right.
I'll sit your house open every single day.
Yeah.
Monday through Friday. When you get home from work, I'll be here holding it open.
Yeah, and I think for new agents, when they have that mind, especially the new ones with this all the NAR stuff, it's a blessing because they don't know it any other way. And I've been in a lot of different rooms with some agents. They have no idea what's going on. They're pushing back. They're trying to find a way around. But the newer agents are like, oh yeah, that makes sense. Okay, cool.
This is the way.
Let's do it.
So what do you think people need to understand in order to have that kind of huge shift you've had? Because as I'm listening to your story, you've had these moments of breakthroughs.
Yeah.
Right. How do you find them? Were they accidental? Were they on purpose? And how do you get back to that place once you've kind of achieved your next level of comfort that you just described?
Yeah. I would say in asking people for feedback about myself has been really helpful because sometimes people see things in you that you cannot see in yourself.
Yeah, I actually say that's this part right here, right?
Yeah.
You can't see what you can't see.
Yeah, it's like, well, how do I show up?
Mm-hmm.
And I would say number one is bring the energy, be the person that everybody, after they talk with you, they say, I always feel so much better when I talk to her. I always want to be that person, even if my day is not great. So when I'm showing up to speak to my team or I'm showing up to speak to a client, whatever that is, if I just chase the dog down the street and like burn myself and, stepped into something, I'm human, but I'm going to show up with my best for them. And I think that's important because how you walk into a room, a phone call, anything else, it becomes who you are. It's your brand. It's the emotional feeling that people have when they experience your presence. And so for me, it's really just been that I'm consistent. If I say I'm going to do something, I absolutely do it, or I do more than what I said I would do. And that's who I am. I will never not be that person. And people get used to that, and they expect that that's who you are, and they trust you. And so a lot of times I feel like it takes time. It was a long game, mm-hmm. Right? And then the other part of it is my part. My part is being brave. So like, hey, Jess, would you want to try this? Yes. It aligns with what I want to do. So really getting clear on your vision, then you could say yes or no to things very quickly with conviction, and you show up and people continue to give you opportunities.
So how often do you get scared and uncomfortable now? Because when I see you on stage,
every day.
Yeah, you don't look scared.
I get nervous showing up to my team meetings of my own team, and I think it's absolutely because I don't want to take up space in their life. I want to impact them. I want them to feed their families. I want them to buy another house. Like, it's important to me. So when I show up to my team meetings, I'm like, okay, did I do enough?
No, I think the feed your family thing is so important, right? Because obviously we're witnessing a lot of folks be really scared and lashing out in multiple ways, right, on the
Sounds
internet.
simple, but it's real.
Right, everyone's like, no, I'm going to find a workaround, or this is nonsense, or I don't want to do it. And I think it all stems from the fear of not being able to feed my family.
Yeah, so the more you can not carry that emotional crap around all day and just embrace it and just say, okay, what are we doing here? And just jump right into it, you're on your way.
The way I've kind of framed it for folks, it's like life is 10% what happens and 90% how you choose to react to it.
100%.
And right now, I'm quite vocal. I wholeheartedly disagree with the plaintiff's attorney's accusations. I think they saw a big paycheck. They don't care about the consumer. I genuinely mean that. And I think the way we do real estate in North America is the most beautiful, liquid, transparent, accurate system in the world.
Have you seen our paperwork in California?
Well, but compared to Europe, Asia, Latin America,
where you can't really even access what's listed,
there's no analysis.
Right.
You'll find the same house listed with 9 different agents, all non-exclusive, with sometimes different prices and probably different descriptions and square footage, because there's no unifying rule set.
Yeah.
Right. But here we are. We have new rules.
Yep.
It actually doesn't matter how I feel about them or you feel about them.
Right.
The question that anyone needs to ask themselves, it's like, do you still want to participate in the marketplace and represent buyers and sellers doing this very emotional, expensive, and infrequent thing? Yes or no?
Yeah. Yeah, my team and people learn through osmosis, It's just my attitude. So like I have to amend 21 listing agreements this week.
That's a great problem.
That's a great problem. And they're like, oh man, that sucks. I'm like, not really. Yeah. It's just paperwork.
Well, if you had 0 listings to amend, it would suck a lot more.
Yeah, it would suck a lot more. Yeah, right. So, it's just like the old, people don't like to change anything, really. But through change, we have transformation and we get new ideas. And I think pay attention to your thoughts, right? Especially, in real estate, you kind of try to have to get away from only following and only reiterating or reciting like what everybody else says, and like spending enough time with yourself to develop your own thoughts or a little version of it, so that you can contribute in a meaningful way. So it's been fun to watch you do that.
Thank you. Yeah, no, and like this is one of those perfect examples. Like there's plenty of things that we may not want to do, but you have to kind of show up in that moment, and it doesn't matter how you feel about it.
Right. Absolutely.
So where do you see yourself in a couple of years? You've had quite a progression in our industry. How do you see yourself evolving and growing?
Yeah, well, I'm really committed to growing my team. So I'm excited about that. I relaunched my team at the beginning of the year. It's called the Nieto Connect Team. So our vision is we just connect all of the consumers with opportunity, wealth, growth, community. And I'm committed to continuing to grow that. I have a vision of what I want to do, but it's actually not tied to real estate numbers. So first is just getting everybody set up to, I want to have at least 5 of my team members buy a house next year.
That's an awesome
or their
goal.
First investment property or something like that. And
I want to unpack that a little bit because, that's something I obsessed with when I had a team. And the amount of times I said to people, it's like, there's so much inside of each one of us that's powerful, right? So I'll give you a super good example. I'm good with math.
Right, I love math too.
But like I could show full-time employees, like staff people, where it's like, hey, they're like, they needed a raise. And I'm like, let's actually unpack your finances.
Right.
Which actually evolved into part of my wife and I's family foundation on financial literacy.
Pareja Foundation, yeah.
Right, where we actually sat down and said, hey, you're struggling with your bills, but like, let's actually sit down, and I showed them how to pay off their credit card debt with the same income, right? Just by understanding revolving debt, different interest rates. It's like, did you know that like you're paying 10% on your car, and let's get that down to 5%, right? It was with their own income without changing the income.
Wild? Wow.
We could go from negative to positive.
Wow.
Right? And then, like when you think of bonuses and stuff, it's like if you actually get to know who the people you serve are, your employees, your team members, a $500 cash bonus for Christmas doesn't meaningfully impact them because they'll spend it, right?
Yeah.
But if you sent a single parent and their child to Disney that you pre-bought 8 months ago,
right,
it could probably cost you the same amount of money.
Right.
Right? Direct flights to Orlando are cheap, and you can pre-buy the tickets, and you literally can make the decision for them that they probably can't do in their own budget.
100%. That's impact.
Right?
Yeah,
And
it
then,
is.
and if you get to know, like, what are your dreams? And they're like, I've always wanted to take my...
That's what I ask people when they join the team, yeah.
Yeah, like my kid or...
So I really want to know, like, what do you really want to do?
And if you can help someone achieve their dreams, they will...
And they love you forever.
Run through walls for you.
Yes, they will. No, it's real. It absolutely is. And I believe, being on this platform at EXP, I don't take it for granted. I show up for the meetings. I listened to the town hall this morning for the team, participated in a planning meeting for the Women of Impact Network event that we have coming up.
Which I'm super excited for.
Which, Leo, thank you so much. I mean, it's just so nice to have leadership like you and Wendy and everyone in leadership just really supporting this in a meaningful way. And we're just getting started, with you in leadership. So I'm grateful, and to Glenn as well. We're doing amazing things, and I think I heard the other day that it's something like 50% rather than 30% of agents are possibly considering a move.
Yeah,
is that a real number, or what's your thought on that?
It's an Inman poll.
It's an Inman poll, okay.
That said that 54% of
54.
all agents are considering moving companies right now. And I actually unpacked that on a couple of talks I've done recently. And I actually start with saying, know your numbers, right? Numbers create context.
They
right?
do.
This year will be the worst year in 30 years of real estate.
Yeah.
2024.
For most people.
From a unit standpoint.
From a unit standpoint, yeah.
Right? And I do point out the fact that this is not an exponential game. This is a finite game.
Right.
If there's 4 million transactions, there's only X amount of transactions in Irvine.
Right. Period.
And it's a fist fight.
Right.
It's only so much pie to go around. When there's 7 million transactions, it's like there's more than anyone can handle.
Right.
And so when there is pain and fear with feeding your family and you don't have context,
You look for.
you're like, I'm wrong. Something's wrong. I need to change something.
Right. Rather than change our behaviors, we change our company.
Something.
But it's the easiest thing
Cut
to
your hair
change
off,
sometimes. Yeah. Right. New car. Maybe you can't afford the new car.
Maybe you make decisions that you think could help the problem. And I was given a talk, I think, at Build Anaheim recently, and I said, right now everyone's looking for greener grass. And I said, the grass grows where you water it.
Right. And so
Period.
It's a simple formula to come to EXP. So right now I'm committed to making sure that everyone knows about the opportunity that I talk to. So we call every agent that I work with, every agent that I talk to, every agent that loses a deal, we invite them to my Monday Mastermind where we focus on cultivating listings. We build relationships there, but it's completely brand agnostic. But I figure there's a 54% chance if I ask you to join EXP that you're probably coming. And then the formula from there is you plug in, you find a community, you open the playbook, and then you get into action.
That just kind of demonstrated your mindset.
Pick
for me,
one.
Right? I feel that most people I've heard, even in our company and other companies, when they hear the 54% stack, they go into scarcity and fear of, oh my God, I'm going to lose my people.
Right.
Versus you're like, it's open season. Everyone's recruitable right now.
Everybody's coming over tomorrow. Yeah.
That was awesome to just watch how you connect those dots. Well, final thought. What would you want people to hear be your last thought, whether it's to a new agent or someone struggling, or who would you resonate with if you could leave them with a couple words? Yeah,
I'll just say we're all leaders in our lives, whatever that is, and we absolutely. Everyone wants to find vision later and figure out what they want later. And I think if everyone could commit to spending a little time with themselves and figuring out really what kind of impact and legacy they want to make in life, and then work backwards and break it down, it becomes so much simpler to get there and make it happen. So I'm excited to see what we do in the next year. Leo, thanks for having me.
No, thank you for making the time to spend with me today. And I'll see you in Austin.
I'll see you in Austin.